Today is the day of Mars, and you're listening to Selene's Gateway Weekly Forecast. I'm your host, Devin Malone, and I'm joined once again by my friend Eliza. We'll be contextualizing the astrology of Wednesday, April 15th, up through Tuesday, April 21st, but we'll probably move into the Wednesday after just because of how the astrology plays out. And yeah, welcome back for another week, Eliza.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Great. It's going to be a lovely week. I'm so excited to talk about it. Nothing eventful happening or stressful or difficult at all.
Yeah, we're definitely just smooth sailing from here on out. We made it through last week and we're being very sarcastic right now, but not too sarcastic, just a little sarcastic.
I'm being very sarcastic.
Okay. Um, I don't know about how your week went, but my week surprisingly wasn't as difficult as I was thinking it was going to be. I had some personal transit anxiety that I was dealing with, but I reached out to Threads last week and got a bunch of different advice from different astrologers, and I felt like that was a really good way to uh just like hone that anxiety down a little bit. But I think my highlight for the week was yesterday's Mamdani speech. I don't know if you caught that, but he did a speech for his first 100 days in office in New York, and it was very Jupiter and Venus vibes for sure, and I was really appreciative of it. How about you? How was your week?
um, we're starting in the middle of the week, so it's like confusing to me. Do you mean like the 7 days leading up to today?
Yeah, since we talked last.
Um, I don't know. All that exists is now and not now. I'm kidding. Um, it was I would think it was a lot. I think that has been a lot building up to this new moon in Aries. The waning of the moon building up to the new moon period is always like a little bit taxing. And I think that this new moon is just landing in a really significant part of my chart. And so it's sort of feeling impactful, and I'm a little tired, but I'm surviving.
Surviving is a good place to at least be standing at. Um, thank you for sharing. Yeah, and if anybody wants to contextualize how their week was, please leave comments in the video, because we would like to hear about it. And we also did what we did last week, where we both pulled tarot cards. This week I got the Six of Swords, and that surprisingly, really kind of fits with how I feel like the transits are moving through this week. I think the Six of Swords, accepting the transition, accepting the way things are moving and just waiting to get to the other side is a very redeemable energy for this week. The Rider-Waite-Smith Six of Swords is an image of people sitting in a boat together, like transitioning from one place to another. And I really, that's definitely the embodiment of the energy that I'm going to try to hold in my mind as I move through this week. How about you, Eliza?
Well, I accidentally pulled two. I didn't really mean to, but I pulled the Knight of Pentacles and the Seven of Wands. So, um, the Knight of Pentacles is like a slow moving earth energy, but it's slow, but it's steady and consistent. Um, and like grounded, um, even keel, I would say. But the Seven of Wands is kind of about standing your ground when you're like facing adversity and having to deal with difficult challenges or tests, and sort of, yeah, holding your territory, holding your ground even while you're facing those challenges, and like having the courage and the strength to do so. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
slowly moving forward towards the adversity, but you're persisting nonetheless, and you're being brave about it, and and certain level of fixed about it as well. You're fixed in your conviction and courageously standing your ground while also somehow moving forward.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you take it back to the Rider-Waite-Smith Knight of Cups, like, or Knight of Pentacles, he's like overseeing a field and very stationary. So I really like the idea of like you said, of like having firm grounding maybe in your beliefs and being able to stand that perimeter as a way of like guarding what you care about.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm just noticing the bottom of the deck is the Four of Wands, which is cool because that's where the new moon this week is happening. But we'll get there later.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that all three of or four of those cards like really I think they're giving us good advice. And oftentimes when I'm drawing tarot for astrological events, sometimes it like points at a resonance of something that's happening in the sky, like a planet is there or something like that. But 2 weeks in a row now, it's pointed at something that we're not contextualizing. And I think that that's what's been really helpful for me about these cards because like there's nothing technically in that part of Aquarius, the Six of Swords right now, same with where the Knight of Pentacles resides or where the Seven Wands resides. So it's really like bringing in these other archetypes that we're not dealing with directly through the transits. So I really like how that's working for us. Um, so really quickly, I'm just going to go through the major aspects for the week, and then we'll go through day by day, just like we did last week. And yeah, and we'll go into detail and talk about things as they come up. But this is just the quick run through of some of the things we're going to see. So tomorrow starts us off with a big moon day. We'll talk more about that, but basically the moon is going to be running through the gauntlet right before the new moon in Aries. Then on Thursday we get the Mars Pluto sextile and the Mercury Neptune conjunction. On Friday is the new moon, which perfects early in the morning. On Saturday we get a sextile from Mercury to Pluto in the afternoon. Then on Sunday, we get another big moon day, followed by a 35-hour period without any other aspects, which we'll talk more about later. Mars conjoins Saturn that afternoon. And then the sun, just a couple of hours later, moves into Taurus. On Monday, Mercury conjoins Saturn and Mars from 6 a.m. till the afternoon. And then on Tuesday, the moon enters Cancer, squaring the Aries stellium that is currently residing there, and we'll go into how fares for Wednesday as well. And so yeah, so that's the brief overview, and Eliza's going to take us through the day to day, and we'll see what comes to mind as we talk about those transits.
All right. So starting with Wednesday, April 15th. Is that right?
Yep,
So we're
correct.
starting. Okay. So early in the morning on Wednesday, April 18th at 8:07 a.m. Central Time, we have Moon sextile Uranus. Then at 9:04 a.m., about an hour later, the moon from Pisces will move into Aries. The moon conjoins Mercury, who's newly in Aries, at 10:15 a.m. Then the moon conjoins Neptune a few hours later at 1:44 p.m. After that, the moon conjoins Mars at 5:08 p.m. The moon sextiles Pluto at 6:15 p.m. And then the moon conjoins Saturn at 9:37 p.m. So this is a pretty intense day for the moon, who is losing her light and waning and trying to clear out the old, while at the same time having to sort of run through this gauntlet of both the malefics and fire signs and um, just kind of seems like a taxing, difficult time for the moon.
Yeah, and I think this is a good point to like talk about how this is going to be a consistent, not maybe not as intense, but a consistent theme we're going to run into for a while of basically any time the moon reaches a traditional aspect line of sight, a sextile, a square, a trine, an opposition, and then obviously a conjunction. Like she's going to be running through this gauntlet, and and it might be an emotionally tense time. It might be very careful around like hot and sharp things. Like it's it's not it's not going to be easy.
Yeah, it's not going to be like this though, again, because this is the waning moon that is a dark moon. So any other time that the moon is in Aries, for the rest of the year, every time it conjoins Saturn and Neptune, it's not going to be as as taxing. I don't think. I mean, it could be taxing in different ways. It's just that this is about kind of clearing out the old. And when the moon is losing her light, she's sort of waning in energy, and um, she's going to need a little bit of extra rest after this day, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with that because yeah, that the waning light like you said is the releasing. We're doing basically the most releasing with the most malefic energy all at once tomorrow. And then from there on out the aspects and the energies like they're going to be different. They're going to be coming from different places and like as the year moves forward, she will be having more and more light. Uh, but this may characterize a storyline or a feeling process that might come back repeatedly, just not with the same level of intensity and like Eliza said, releasing energy.
Yeah, we're gonna get to tune in with this new Mercury in Aries as well, when the moon conjoins in the morning. So there may be some integrations happening, some revelations, some new things kind of like clicking together about the old cycle that you're needing to fully integrate and sort of cleanse out. Just some new sort of a new perspective on what it is that we're going to be letting go of, within this lunar cycle, and maybe some ideas about like what we'll want to work on after we get past this new moon, like some new things that we'll want to work on. But first, it's like, well, what do we have to clear out before we can kind of bring in the new?
Yeah, and as we're recording this, Mercury is still in Pisces, so uh it will be nice to at least experience a new Mercury energy tomorrow when we wake up. Not necessarily great, but just new.
It's going to be a difficult Mercury for a little while. It's not going to be nice. I'm sorry. It'll be nice in its own right, in the fact that it'll be novel and it'll be refreshing to some extent because we'll get a new perspective on things. But the perspective that we're going to be downloading is maybe not going to be the most comfortable or easy or pleasant information, although it might be really insightful and important nonetheless.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So then Thursday, April 16th at 10:10 a.m., we have the sun conjoining Chiron. And I don't think we really discussed Chiron too much, but I wanted to include
No.
this because Chiron is going to be leaving Aries here in a little bit. So we're at the very end here. And with the sun conjunction, it just kind of seems like, especially after Wednesday, which might be kind of a tender day where maybe we kind of could get our feelings hurt a little bit about certain things. I think that the sun is going to come in and really shine a light on whatever those wounds are that are kind of like needing some sort of like attention or healing. And so if you get extra revelations around things that hurt or the wounds or the things that are needing tending to, then maybe just allow that to kind of sink in, and it's good to have some light shone on those tender areas, even if it's maybe not like the most comfortable thing, because the sun is also helpful for healing, and so it might be able to bring in a little vitality to these areas that have been feeling kind of low or difficult for a long time now, because Chiron's been in Aries for a while now. But moving on, we do have a nice, finally, the moon gets to square Jupiter. So we do get a nice moon transit at the end of Aries here, right before the new moon, after the moon has touched all both the malefics, all these difficult energies. We do get a little bit of reprieve or a little bit of salve to help for whatever the sunburn or whatever the burn is from the day before. There's an opportunity for some support here when the moon squares Jupiter, hopefully around 1:53 p.m. And then Mars will sextile Pluto at 1:55 p.m. And then Mercury now gets to Neptune at 9:01 p.m. and makes a conjunction with Neptune. So whatever these insights were, they're going to get to go through the Neptune journey. So, you know, that's interesting. How do you feel about those transits?
Yeah, I'll be definitely applying some balm for sure. Thanks for bringing Chiron into the conversation. I definitely overlooked that and was even like wondering what to say about it. But yeah, I love the idea of Chiron bringing in the remedies. Like Chiron not only shining a light on the wound, but also giving us the remedies that we need to heal the wounds.
Well,
Um,
the sun helps with that. The exalted sun here at the end of its pass through Aries, like that can be a healing or revitalizing energy.
yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And and then Mars sextile Pluto, I'm sure that'll bring some bigger issues to light from outside experience from the global perspective, but as far as the internal perspective goes, like for me, the Mars Pluto transits have been very action oriented towards making personal changes in my life. And that's that's just one of the ways that it's expressed in my life. So if you have had that same sort of resonance, this might be a next step in that chapter since we're at the opening sextile between the Mars Pluto conjunction. And then the Mercury Neptune conjunction, I'm excited to see what it brings in Aries. Excited is I have a morbid curiosity, so sometimes when I use these words exciting or excited or whatever, it's from that novel perspective of like seeing something I've never experienced before, like the Mercury Neptune conjunction in Aries. Um, Hopefully I'll feel inspired to like write some poetry about it or something like that. But yeah, we'll see what kind of images that conjures.
I think it could be a good time to journal um, your thoughts and feelings, and also kind of journaling about the things that you want to let go of, and journaling about the things that you want to envision for the future, but more so journaling about the things that are kind of like hanging to you, taxing you, plaguing you, kind of like getting them out in an expressive way, through writing or talking to a friend or listening to music that helps you kind of like tap into some sort of cathartic energy. So Friday, April 17th. Um, well, we have the new moon that day, and right before the new moon, which happens at 6:52 a.m., the moon is going to also pass up Chiron, because this is a new moon very close to Chiron. So the moon conjoins Chiron at 5:33 a.m. Then the moon conjoins the sun, and we have the new moon at 6:52 a.m. After that, we have the moon moving into Taurus, but what time does the moon move into Taurus? Because I left off that time for some reason.
Looks like 10:57 a.m.
Okay. So the new moon at 6:52 a.m. and then just somewhat shortly after that, the moon leaves Aries, and which is good, and gets to Taurus, where the moon gets to kind of have a little bit more solid footing and finds itself in its sign of exaltation, where it has like some strength and some stabilizing energy, which is really nice, especially right after a new moon, because that can kind of help you solidify whatever your new intentions are for the month ahead. It can be a really nice moon to kind of start the whole cycle with. And then that evening, we do have the moon from Taurus squaring Pluto at 7:46 p.m. But that's pretty much it. It's mostly just about the new moon that day, really.
Yeah, I'll definitely be tending to my like ancestor altars and just finishing up all that clearing work on Friday for sure. The And maybe that that transition from the dark moon to the moon in Taurus is kind of where that Knight of Pentacles card is really like coming through to like use Friday as a day to like take stock of your inventory of what you have to give, what your energy level is, and what you might want to defend.
Yeah, and some slowing down because there's going to be all that quick energy that comes through while the moon is in Aries, touching all those planets in Aries. Like there's a real speed and urgency and fieriness to that moon. And so there could be a deep slowing down, kind of like grounding that we come to on Friday after the new moon perfects, allowing all of that to kind of just like soak in and um, I think kind of just taking a little bit of extra good care of ourselves and our bodies that day would probably be a good idea. The new moon in Aries is at the very end of Aries, though. I believe it's at 27 degrees. And so wherever Aries is in your chart, you're having some sort of new beginning that's being ushered in. And that's why it's good during the dark moon phase to kind of like gear your intentions towards whatever it is that you're wanting to let go of. So whatever these new seeds that you're wanting to plant are able to actually be brought in into like a more clear and clean, cleared out area of your life. So wherever the Aries part of your chart is getting a good clearing out. It's kind of being like sterilized with a blowtorch, if you will, and then you'll be able to plant some new seeds and set some new intentions. But I would just sort of wait to really be setting those intentions until after the new moon happens on Friday morning. And especially while the moon is in Taurus, it's a really nice time to kind of plant those metaphorical seeds.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then Saturday, April 18th, we have the moon sextiling Jupiter from Taurus to Cancer at 3:01 p.m. And that's very supportive, earthy, watery energy that could also help bring in more reprieve for whatever this like fiery challenging energy was that we've already dealt with in the days leading up to this point. So it's just another day that's really good for grounding and self-care, I think, with that moon sextile of Jupiter, like in the middle of the day there, in the middle of the afternoon at 3:01 p.m. And they're both in their signs of exaltation. So, that's just a really strong place for both of them, and can help us with, again, planting those seeds and kind of like setting our new intentions and kind of trying to take care of ourselves. Especially because we have some malefic energy that is like peaking right now since that conjunction between Mars and Saturn will happen tomorrow. So it's sort of just try to ground yourself and do what you can to help yourself out so that you're in the best state of mind to be able to handle these more challenging energies of the malefics that are coming in right now. And then we also have a Mercury in Aries sextile to Pluto in Aquarius. And I think that's all the transits I have for the rest of the day on Saturday. Do you have anything else that I missed there?
No, no, that's pretty much it for Saturday. And it's interesting too, because like there's actually a really big gap between the last moon transit to Pluto on Friday all the way to the moon transit uh on Saturday. So it's just a lot of time holding on to those energies. So I really like that we're moving into that Jupiter's sextile because the you're talking about planting seeds and like that's such a beautiful aspect to try to like start some intentions behind. The moon, is free from the malefic energy that is building on the other side of the wall between Taurus and Aries, but the moon's kind of like safeguarded from it. So it is a really great time to like just really deepen into that, like get your fingers into the soil and maybe literally plant some seeds. We are in the spring.
Yeah, I think it's good for literal and metaphysical planting of seeds. And yeah, just getting yourself to as much of a regulated state as possible since these malefics are going hard right now as they form this conjunction. And so on Sunday, April 19th, at 1:43 a.m., we have the moon in Taurus conjoining Venus in Taurus. They are towards the end of Taurus here. I believe they're in Taurus 3. Um, yeah, conjoined, the moon will conjoin fixed star Algol at 5:43 a.m. early that morning. But then the moon conjoins Uranus at 10:44 a.m. The moon from Taurus then moves into Gemini at 11:17 a.m. Then the moon from Gemini will sextile Neptune at 3:56 p.m. And shortly after, we have the malefics conjoining. So we get Mars in Aries conjoining Saturn in Aries at 5:43 p.m. Then the moon in Gemini will trine Pluto in Aquarius at 8:03 p.m. And finally, sad day, but the sun in Aries does eventually have to move into Taurus. I'm just kidding. Taurus is great, but we love the sun in Aries. Anyway, the sun in Aries, the sun in Aries, which apparently I love, has to move into Taurus, which is a different energy and is a nice energy. But anyway, the sun moves into Taurus. What time does that happen? For some reason, I didn't
I,
write
I have it written down as 8:39 p.m. Central.
that. Okay. So yeah, at the very end of Sunday, the sun's day, the sun leaves its sign of exaltation and it decides to leave the malefics on their own. And that's also part of why I am expressing this lamentation for the sun leaving Aries, because I think that the sun being there while the malefic's there is providing some sort of like support and um, positive energy and help um, in this part of our chart where these difficult things are happening. And so the sun leaving that, you know, kind of just like leaves the bad guys alone to like do what they will. And it's like, I gotta move on, guys. Like, uh, try not to fuck things up too bad. Okay, good luck. So I'm not normally so like despairing about the sun moving into Taurus. I'm normally more excited about it. It's just that this year with the malefics there, I'm kind of like, well, that's a little bit scary, but we'll get there. We'll get there. So then the moon sextiles Mercury at 11:18 p.m. late at night, and then the moon gets to the bendings of the nodes at 11:27 p.m. So there's a lot to talk about on this Sunday. We have the middle conjunction, the conjunction of Mars and Saturn. We have the sun ingress into a whole new sign, into a whole new astrological season, if you will. We have this Gemini moon that's being kind of buzzy in an air sign now, and it doesn't actually get to the planets in Aries until very early the next day, but we get that sort of speeding up happening again with the moon now in an air sign and starting to apply to these planets in Aries.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, and you know, uh, yeah, I agree. Even though I am a Taurus sun, no shade felt thrown,
Yeah,
because I
I love
agree.
Taurus season. Like, let me make that very clear. I love Taurus season. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, but I 100% agree that I've been watching this period of time where, like, yeah, the sun kind of like keeps the malefics in check by being there. Uh, Eliza and I both share Austin Coppock as a teacher, and one of the things that he talks about is how the sun, when it's near planets, is like kind of having your boss looking over your shoulder. And I kind of feel like that's what the sun has been doing while it's been, and it's especially in its exaltation in Aries, has been looking over and like making sure things don't go too awry. Though the world may not seem that way, um, I think that I do agree that that's kind of what the sun's been doing. And when the sun moves out and moves into Taurus, it not only is leaving Aries, it's also losing sight of the malefics by no longer having a traditional aspect to them. So they are just gonna be able to be unruly and be of their own natures, if you will, from a like a Hellenistic verbiage. They'll be able to act of their own nature. And so yeah, it's not exciting. Um
I mean, in other news, though, it is nice for the sun to get to move to a place where there's a benefic, and it also has line of sight to Jupiter by a sextile. So it is actually, even though the sun loses its dignity by exaltation there, it is also somewhat of a reprieve for the sun to get out of Aries as well. So, not having to be with those malefics, it's sort of got, you can kind of look at it both ways. It's got some pros and cons going on. It'll be nice for the sun to not have to like be dealing with the malefics as well all the time.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and we have this moon like we described earlier, like running its gauntlet. This is the first time the when the moon moves into Gemini, this is the first time the moon has begun running the gauntlet of making the aspects to Aries after like receiving its first uh, solidified light from the sun. So we'll be experiencing what that feels like since this is all fresh. You know, this is the first lunation cycle since Mars and Saturn have been together in Aries. So it's going to be new. It's going to be something that we haven't experienced for, well, ever because Neptune's there, but also just Mars and Saturn since the late 90s. So it's all going to be important to pay attention and to just take stock and be vibrantly aware. And I hope the or I believe that the having good sight of Mercury from Gemini will help with that quick mind. You talked about the moon being quick in the air sign of Gemini, and it's also quick in speed. It's actually approaching its fastest point in its cycle by being in Gemini this time of year because of where Black Moon Lilith is currently. So it's not only going to be quick because of air sign, but it's actually like literally moving its fastest.
Yeah, and that sextile to Mercury, since it happens, at least in Central Time, it happens at 11:18 p.m. It happens late at night on Sunday night. So if you are, you know, waking up Monday morning for your like regular work week, just know that like Sunday night could be a little buzzy. And so you may need a little bit of extra support getting to sleep and winding down because that might be a little bit uh energizing in a certain type of way, or even like stress inducing, depending on how it's kind of playing out. Especially considering world events and all the things that may be like unfolding as this conjunction occurs.
Yeah, absolutely. At the minimum, it's a high energy moon. However, that energy translates through your mind and body. Like it's
Yeah,
it's
like it might
it's
not be a good high energy, but it's high energy.
yeah.
It could be good high energy though. It just depends. And I think that maybe kind of trying to focus on that Knight of Pentacles energy would be a helpful support during this time because it's again, it's that like slowing down, grounded energy, connecting with anything that helps you feel calm. And, I think breath work would be a really good option on this day. Trying to slow your system down because it's going to be moving quite fast.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, anything else you want to say about the conjunction of Mars and Saturn? It's kind of a big deal. It does happen, what, every 2 years? But so it's not like we've like, we do them like clockwork every 2 years. It's just that right now, them being in Aries is a very strong place for Mars and a very difficult place for Saturn. And anytime that they come together, they have some difficulty because they are both representing different types of energy that are inherently at odds in some respects. They do have some things in common, but they also are very different in many ways. One wants to go really fast, which is Mars. The other one wants to go slow, which is Saturn. And since they're both in Mars's sign, it could be somewhat impetuous. I would be careful of any sort of like impulsiveness. I would be careful to make sure you're not forcing anything. I would be careful to make sure you're not overly inflaming any certain situations. If you're feeling some frustration or if things aren't working out for you as easily or gracefully as maybe you would like, then just know that is okay. You probably need to slow down and readjust your expectations and just try to be a little bit extra careful and safe. And again, tapping into some of that breath work would be good. What would you say about Mars conjunct Saturn and Aries?
Yeah, I'm gonna continue with my truck hauling a heavy trailer metaphor from last week, except that was like leading into this conjunction. And now that we're here, this is more like cresting the hill and then going down the hill, possibly too fast with the heavy load behind you. Like, I don't know, it's a silly image, but it's like when a dog tries to run and like the back end starts to swing around to its front, like it's the back legs start catching up with the front legs. Like in trucking, that's called jackknifing, and where the trailer starts to spin around towards the front of the truck, and so that's kind of like that's what I'm kind of worried about doing this week is like being excited to get going downhill, but like not controlling my speed that like things start to like collapse on top of me from behind. Or like maybe like when a surfer is like riding a giant wave, like if you take on a wave that's too big that you're not experienced with doing, you could end up being crushed by the weight of the collapse of the wave on top of you. And so that to me is like what this culminating point between Mars and Saturn is like the beginning or starting of is like cresting that peak of the perfect conjunction and then making sure that you manage your speed to not be overwhelmed by the weight that you're carrying.
Yeah, pacing yourself is very important. And I think using extra care and extra mindfulness in anything that you do, I think driving also, if you have to drive anywhere this day, please be just a little bit extra cautious, be a little bit extra on the lookout for potential hazards and threats and dangers. That kind of goes all across the board for anything, but I would say just especially for driving because I kind of associate Mars with driving and Mercury, and Mercury is there with these malefics right now. So, using some extra care and caution and vigilance while you're driving, I would avoid speeding at all costs. And I would also be on the lookout for others who are speeding and who are moving really fast and recklessly. It's just not a good time to be reckless. Even if the energy may make you feel inclined towards that, it's not really a great time to be reckless or impulsive. I, especially with Mercury there, if frustrations are coming up or irritations are coming up and you need to have like communication and conversation about it, I would maybe give it some time. You may need to like, slow your roll, because this could be a time where conflicts are really bubbling up and any kind of communication that you try to have could be potentially inflammatory. If you do have to have any sort of like conflict resolution conversations on this day, which hopefully you don't, but if you do, just know you're going to want to bring some cooling element into that conversation and it's just it's not going to go well if you're sort of like we said last week, if you're firing off all cylinders, it's not going to go super well. So just sort of like stay hydrated and try to be as cool, calm, and collected as possible, and also careful.
Yeah, yeah, I 100% agree with that. I might even suggest like if conflict does arise on Sunday, I probably wouldn't reapproach it until the moon gets back into Cancer, just so
Yeah.
that you have that lunar support for the cooling process.
Yeah, I don't mean to be, yeah, I mean, I'm not always pro conflict avoidance because sometimes we need a little conflict, but I think on this day, maybe be a little conflict avoidant if you can. If you can. I don't know.
It's a
Maybe
tool in the
maybe not.
chest. It's not a healthy tool for every conflict scenario, but it is a tool for some.
What do you mean by that?
Oh, like avoiding conflict, allowing conflict to breathe. Like it's not good to use it every time you're in conflict, but
Right.
some conflicts it is good to just cool down first before you.
Exactly. I think that's a, yeah, letting something breathe seems really important. Giving something a little bit of extra space and time. If it has some inflammation surrounding it, you're going to want to give it a little bit of extra space and time. And doesn't mean you're avoiding it forever. It means that you're putting it on ice and you're giving it some time to chill. Then coming back to it when the energies are slightly less challenged and conflicting.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the
And we'll be feeling that conjunction like all week and into the following week. It takes a while for them to really separate. It's just that it's peaking on that day on Sunday evening.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It tends to be, I find Mars transits especially tend to be like the hardest as they're applying rather than separating, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, yeah, plus we got the Mercury connecting it all together too, so it's like not just a clean breakaway.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be a lingering thing for a while where you're going to need to pace your energy. I know Austin Coppock also uh, equates the Mars Saturn conjunction to like the classic serial killer in horror movies where it's like they are always coming for you, but they're moving slowly, but they never stop. And you think that you've killed them, but you haven't. They persist. They're like relentless in their persistence, but they just continuously keep coming. Just like they're not like sprinting at you or jumping out at you out of nowhere. They're just slowly always coming.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like that you you take a moment to rest, you take a moment to breathe, and like you think you've gotten far enough away, and then all of a sudden you turn a corner. There they are. How did that happen?
Just lurking slowly,
But
but
yeah,
steadily. So maybe take some notes from the serial killers and just keep going, but just go slowly. And if you have goals that you're pursuing, maybe those classic archetypal serial killers from the movies could be lending you some sort of inspiration in
it,
some messed up way.
yes.
I'm not
Slow.
advocating that you murder anyone. I'm just advocating that you be like them without the murder.
Yes, yeah. Hunt and pursue your goals at a steady, persistent pace so that you can eventually accomplish/kill them.
Yes, to slay your goals.
Slay queen. Slay
Yes,
your goals, queen.
relentlessly slay, queen, but do it slowly and don't try not to start any fights. And if you have any, if you work with fire or you're lighting candles or you're doing anything like that, if you work with sharp objects, just like be extra careful.
Yeah, I've actually I actually have a story about a Mars transit that was related to Saturn. It was a square, and this smoker box I was working in a kitchen at a time, and this like really low powered smoker box, like it's just meant to make things smolder, like it's not a hot element. I had it in the oven, and it was doing its thing. It was smoking the meat. And all of a sudden, my chef comes around the corner and looks in the oven. And he goes, "Is that supposed to be on fire?" And sure enough, this little low-powered smoker box had ignited into flames inside the oven. And it was just like, yeah. And that was definitely a Saturn Mars square. And it was ridiculous.
Interesting. Yeah, so you just had to like carefully deal with that, tend to that fire to put it out or what?
Oh yeah, just I just opened up the door and doused and drowned it in water, you know. It was just a tiny little device. It hadn't caught the oven on fire. It was just on fire inside the oven. So it was pretty easy to deal with. It was just, is that supposed to be on fire? Like, no, chef, it's not supposed to be on fire.
That's pretty hilarious because I do have a Mars ruled fourth house and in Aries and like like clockwork when Saturn moved into Aries into my fourth house, my oven caught fire and then died. And it was like, oh, Saturn's in my fourth house now. Great.
Thanks for
Pretty
the heads up, Saturn.
pretty astrology good. Yeah. So with that being said, drink a lot of water, try to try to chill out if you can. Try to maybe do like some very careful calming exercises, maybe. Monday, April 20th, then we have the moon sextiling Saturn at exactly midnight in Central Time. So the moon from Gemini sextiles Saturn in Aries 12 a.m. Then the moon goes on very shortly afterwards to sextile Mars, since they are still very close. That only happens 17 minutes later. So it's basically the moon sextiling both of them at the same time. And so we'll be feeling that. We'll be feeling that conjunction via the moon. And then the moon in Gemini, that's the last aspect it makes at 12:17 a.m. and it doesn't aspect anything else until the next day, basically what, 24 hours later or something, right? Or
It's
no, like
actually
12 hours later.
it's 35 hours till it makes its next aspect. It moves into Cancer on Tuesday at
Okay,
noon.
yeah, sorry, I said that wrong. Yeah, okay. So the last aspect from the moon in Gemini is at 12:17 a.m. and it's that sextile to Mars. And then we get the Mercury conjunction to Saturn at 6:22 a.m. early Monday morning. And again, of course, the Mercury conjunction to Mars at 4:44 p.m. in the afternoon. So it's kind of a hard Monday.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is once again where we talk about how the communication thing is just going to be so key and trying to not use like weapons as words but finding other ways of like
You mean words as
use
weapons?
yeah, words as
Does
weapons.
anyone
Yeah.
use weapons as words? Because that actually might be kind of cool. Just maybe not using words as weapons.
I remember watching an anime where a character used his sword to write calligraphy, so I guess that's what I was
Okay,
implying.
okay. Just, but maybe like don't be a dick.
Yeah, don't be a dick about it. Just use your weapon for words. Um, um,
Punch the
but
air,
yeah,
not other people.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, but it is a good day for I personally like to use Mercury in Aries since that's one of my positions. I think that it's a problem solver, or at least it's the alchemical process of Mercury that Mercury can apply to things can help you sort and file things. So if you can use your mind to help maybe arrange the words that you want to say to somebody and do a couple of times of going through it before actually having the conversation at another time, this might be a good time to like assess those thoughts. I really feel like this is where the Six of Swords is really coming into play as this part of the week where you just need to like let the current take you through these days instead of like trying to take any serious direct action about something in specific.
Yeah, that makes sense. So then we get to Tuesday, um, and we have the moon in Gemini finally getting to Cancer at 12 p.m. So yeah, so the last aspect from the moon is to Mars at 12:17 a.m., and then we don't get another aspect until the moon is in Cancer when she will now sextile the sun at 2:50 p.m., which is kind of nicer energy for the moon. And then the moon will square Neptune at 4:53 p.m. Those are the last aspects of the moon on Tuesday. But of course, because we have this pileup in Aries, the moon will be applying to square Saturn and Mars late that night and early the next morning on Wednesday. So we will probably start to feel that again, those malefic energies, but from a different perspective now, since the moon will be in Cancer and she will have square to these Aries planets instead of the sextile from Gemini. And the moon is also like in her home sign of Cancer, where she's a little bit extra tender, sensitive, vulnerable, feeling things very strongly. And so she can kind of be a little bit more volatile there in her energies because she's really feeling everything in a very big, big way. And so even though we don't get those squares to Saturn and Mars until very early Wednesday morning, I think we'll still probably be feeling that tension building on Tuesday. Basically, as soon as she makes that square to Neptune in the afternoon at 4:53 p.m.
Yeah, I agree. And I really do think that the Tuesday energy should be a very positive switch for the most part, carrying it through into the night. uh It'll just be nice for the moon to be starting to make its application towards its conjunction with Jupiter. Like you said, she is more sensitive, but she's also more resourced by being in Cancer, and Jupiter's there as like a stabilizing energy. And I think that's going to be real. Like sometimes I feel like Jupiter is doing things in the background that we can't really like point a finger at and say like, "Oh, that's because of Jupiter." It's more like maybe the Dutch boy with his finger in the dam sort of a thing where like the dam hasn't collapsed. Oh, because Jupiter's there. And like
I don't know that story.
so or basically or to
What
since I
is
don't
it?
really
Is that
know the
a saying or a story?
say what?
Is that a saying or is that a story?
Yeah, it's a saying or a story. It's basically like there's a leak in a dam, and like the way to remedy it is this Dutch boy comes up and puts his finger in it to stop the leak, but it's only a temporary reprieve from the bigger issue. Um, but I kind of feel like that's what Jupiter does for us in some ways is like he's solving a problem we don't know we have sometimes, and I really feel like this stabilizing energy that the moon's going to be receiving by returning home and being able to. I don't know when the moon returns to Cancer lately with Jupiter there. I just imagine them giving each other like just a really big jolly hug, and like they're just really happy to see each other.
Yeah, that doesn't happen until Wednesday evening, but and it comes on the tail end of those squares to both malefics, so you'll really be needing that hug, I think, at that by that point. It might feel
Yeah,
like extra good because you're feeling like extra bad.
yeah, because it is the harder the square is the harder of the aspects that the moon has felt since the new moon. Obviously, the conjunction gauntlet was the hardest trip through this week, but these squares are gonna feel dicey. But Jupiter's gonna be there to receive the moon at the end of the day on Wednesday.
Yeah, we're kind of speeding through Wednesday because we're going to talk about it more maybe next time. But yeah, I mean, I can say I'll go ahead and say the transits for Wednesday, which is that the moon squares Saturn at 1:30 a.m. Then the moon squares Mars at 4:11 a.m. The moon squares Mercury at 6:29 a.m. And then the moon conjoins Jupiter at 5:52 p.m. So yeah, kind of like going through a fire and then making it to like an oasis on the other side, or going through something that's very hot and fiery and making and getting to like jump in a cool pool of water at the end of it.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe I'll go walk on coals that day.
If you'd like. I don't really recommend it unless you've really developed that like spiritual mindset. Then, maybe just don't do it impulsively. Maybe if you're really spiritually advanced, uh, you could do it. I do think there's something to be said for Aries planets and connecting in with a sense of like spirituality and meditation and finding that sort of like inner peace and inner quietude, so that you can really kind of listen to your intuition and that you're driven more by spirit, more by intuition, more by that like fire inside of you that drives you rather than like, letting your mind and your mental thoughts or your feelings even like get you kind of carried away or swept up in anything like stressful or manic or worrisome. There's like a need to kind of like, especially with the malefics right now, there's a need to kind of like dig deep to find that sort of like the light within you and sort of connect on a more transcendental spiritual level to some sort of something that is beyond you, that is outside of, it's deeper and bigger than your ego or your mind or even your feelings. It's I don't know, meditative Zen state, I guess, if you will. I don't know if I did a very good job at explaining that, but hopefully you know what I mean. We're working with fire, and so that's sort of connecting in with spirit and intuition in that way.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, you hit on something that I think about a lot because like the word inspire, the word inspiration comes from the act of breath. Like the root of the etymology of the word is talking about breath, and one of the things about fire is that it needs oxygen to thrive. And so that process of meditating, it helps you clear the mind, and it also helps breathe onto the hot coals that are inside of you. And it's only when we reach, or it's often when we reach those points of silence in our brains, we actually get that fiery inspiration, because there aren't we're not blocking the inspiration by having too many thoughts, too many ideas, too many fears to create a wall between us and divine inspiration. And so to me, that's that the breath, our breath breathes on the coals that lights the fire that inspires the mind.
Yeah, yeah, it's nice. Yeah, I think maybe having some quiet time with some like hot tea that you've steeped for yourself and sort of just taking some downtime to kind of breathe and enjoy your hot beverage. Maybe hot baths where you are kind of getting into a more meditative headspace. Yoga would be really great. Breath work, taking walks, meditating. Um, uh,
I'm a big proponent for spicy soup. I like spicy soup. That's my
yeah,
fiery water.
yeah. Um, what's the guy's name from Last Avatar? Iroh. He kind
Yeah.
of reminds me of like someone that channels fire energy in like a healthy, wise way. So maybe like take some notes from him.
Yeah.
He likes tea.
Yeah.
I think he likes jasmine tea.
He does love jasmine tea. Yeah.
That would be good, I think, for Aries because jasmine is like Venus and the moon and it's cooling and calming. So maybe something like that.
I'm gonna definitely take up that advice. I love tea.
Yeah, I really like oolong tea, which is like a smoky tea. I think that's kind of nice for Aries as well. If you're into that kind of thing. I don't know. I like green
Yeah.
tea as well. I think that's also really nice.
Yeah, I actually had a friend send me a box of tea mixtures that she made herself. She's a chef in Portland, Oregon, and yeah, I'll definitely use this week to dive into that box and those different varietals for
Yeah,
sure.
drink a lot of tea, take a lot of deep breaths, try to stay calm. Things are probably going to be frustrating, especially in the world. Things are going to maybe be really heightened. There's going to be some stressful war developments because Aries is the sign of war. Mars is the planet of war. So just sort of try to take care of yourself as much as you can.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and I feel like that pretty much closes us out for the week. It's
So it's kind of a fiery beginning to Taurus season.
yeah.
God help us all.
And on that note, thanks for joining us. God, thanks for helping me this week, Eliza. It's always a pleasure to talk with you and hang out with you. Um, and we'll see you all next week, where we will attempt once again to bring in the astral omens through a more lived personal experience.
Yeah, awesome.
I'll see you next week, Eliza.
All right, bye.